Welcome back, everyone. I'm absolutely thrilled you're joining us for another explainer. So, if you've ever felt just totally lost trying to figure yourself out, and then you take a personality test, and suddenly it's like the clouds have parted, well, you're in exactly the right place. Today, we're looking at a massive paradigm shift. We're going to explore how to take those fascinating test results, whether it's MBTI, the Big Five, or concepts like HSP, and use them not as rigid labels, but as dynamic tools to literally redesign your life for the better. We're moving way beyond those standard 16 boxes today, so let's jump right into it.
Did finding out your MBTI result feel like it changed your life? Because for so many of us, getting those 4 little letters was an absolute revelation. I mean, it's this incredible wave of relief when a test finally, accurately explains why you might feel totally wiped out after a seemingly normal social interaction, or why you panic when plans just suddenly change. It's a very real, very valid feeling of finally being seen.
And that happens because there is a profound psychological relief in just giving a name to unexplainable feelings. You go from having a head full of messy, scattered, and frankly frustrating sensations about how you fit into the world, to suddenly having this comforting outline. A single word or an acronym can totally validate your experiences. It tells you, hey, you aren't broken. You just operate in a specific way. And honestly, that feeling of validation, it is absolutely crucial and something we shouldn't take lightly.
Okay, let's dive right into Section 1, the MBTI relief.
So, why has this specific test become such a massive phenomenon, and why is it actually a really powerful starting point for self-discovery? Well, the brilliance of MBTI is kind of in its simplicity. It uses 4 core indicators, or axes, to map out our tendencies. You've got E or I, which looks at where your energy is directed. S or N dictates how you process information. T or F is about how you make judgments. And J or P represents how you interact with the outside world. By combining these into types, like INTJ or ENFP, we get a brilliantly easy to understand entry point for reflecting on our past behaviors. Suddenly, instead of saying, I'm just bad at everything, you can look back and go, oh, I'm an I and an N. I just needed a quiet space and a view of the big picture. It gives us a really manageable vocabulary for self-reflection.
But let's pivot for a second and look at Section 2, the label trap.
Because as helpful as this vocabulary is, there's a hidden danger where a genuinely helpful tool can accidentally turn into a restrictive cage. I'm an INFP, so I can't do sales, right? That right there is the trap of self-restriction. When we start using one single label to explain absolutely every aspect of our existence, self-understanding morphs into self-limitation. And human beings are incredibly complex. We literally cannot be perfectly sliced up by just 4 binary choices. What happens when you're an introvert, but you're hanging out with someone who makes you feel totally safe? You might talk their ear off. Or what if you're an extrovert, but you're just physically exhausted? You're going to want to hide away. If you blame every single fluctuation in your mood on your type, you just boxed yourself in.
We have to stop treating a personality test as a final verdict, like it's some sort of unchangeable life sentence. Instead, we really need to reframe these tests as a helpful memo. Think of it as a sticky note for observation, a working hypothesis. You say to yourself, okay, the test says I have this tendency. Let's actually observe my daily reactions and see if that holds true in practice. Doing that immediately removes all that pressure and restriction.
Moving on to Section 3, traits, not types, and understanding HSP.
Speaking of labels, let's untangle another wildly popular concept that often gets confused with personality types. HSP, the highly sensitive person. This is a concept regarding environmental sensitivity and how deeply you process information. It is a trait. It is not an MBTI personality type. But because the term has gotten so popular, people automatically link it to being an introverted MBTI type. They'll say, I'm HSP, therefore I must be an INFP. But the source material makes it super clear. Sensitivity to stimuli and where you draw your social energy from are entirely separate frameworks. You can absolutely be highly sensitive to your environment and still be a massive extrovert.
Let's look at how this sensitivity actually plays out in the real world. You might be someone who intensely craves new, exciting experiences, but you just get exhausted super quickly. This is often referred to as the high sensation seeking or HSS type of HSP. It feels like a total contradiction, but it's not. It's just a nuanced trait. Or maybe your sensitivity means you achieve this incredible deep focus when you're in a perfectly quiet environment. Or perhaps you're the person in the room who instantly picks up on a subtle shift in a coworker's mood or spots a tiny typo in a huge document. Sensitivity is not inherently a weakness. It's a powerful trait. It just requires you to find the right environment to prevent sensory overload, so your natural abilities can actually shine.
Let's move to Section 4 and see how this all builds, expanding with the Big Five.
If MBTI gives us a great entry-level vocabulary, the Big Five model gives us the academic, dimensional map we really need to understand our complexity. While MBTI offers binary types, you're either E or I, the Big Five model introduces degree and spectrum. It measures 5 distinct traits: openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. And it measures them not as either-or choices, but on a sliding scale. Moving away from binary thinking allows for a vastly more accurate, realistic map of the human mind.
Consider extroversion. You don't have to be 100% an extrovert or 100% an introvert. You might be, say, 60% extroverted and 40% introverted. And this perfectly explains why you might absolutely love collaborating with your team all morning, but desperately need to eat lunch alone in your car. You aren't purely one or the other. You have a unique mix of traits that express themselves differently depending on the situation and exactly who you're around.
And this brings us to a massively comforting realization. Contradictions are entirely normal. Hating massive noisy networking events but absolutely loving deep 3-hour conversations with your 2 closest friends? That's not a sign that your personality is broken. It is completely natural when you view yourself through the lens of degrees and spectrums, rather than strict, rigid types. We all hold these wonderful contradictions.
Okay, Section 5, adjusting your environment.
So how do we actually use all of this? This is where the rubber meets the road. When we feel overwhelmed, our very first instinct is usually to blame ourselves, right? We think, my personality is just too weak to handle this. But look at the hidden environmental stressors we face. Are you getting enough sleep? Are you working in a place with constant draining noise? Are you dealing with an unclear future or constantly shifting plans? Are you stuck in a job role that forces you to act completely against your natural tendencies all day long? We have to empathetically reframe the problem here, because more often than not, it isn't a flaw in your personality. It is simply draining environmental conditions that are causing your struggle.
To fix this, we can use a really practical 3-step toolbox approach. Step 1, guess your tendency from the tests. Use MBTI or Big Five as a starting hypothesis. Step 2, and this is for sure the most important one, record your actual daily reactions. Write down the hard facts. I talked to people for 3 hours today and felt exhausted. Or, I wrote alone for 2 hours and completely lost track of time. Evaluate the actual reality of your day, strictly without judging it as good or bad. And finally, Step 3, adjust your environmental conditions based on that real-world data. Logging your actual daily energy levels is infinitely more useful than blindly trusting what a test result says you should feel.
As you make these adjustments, focus on finding non-draining conditions rather than obsessing over the mythical, perfect job for your type. Look, guessing the MBTI of famous billionaires or athletes is fun for entertainment, sure, but real-life change doesn't come from just copying their careers. It comes from analyzing the specifics of your own daily grind. It's about looking at your current job and figuring out how to minimize the parts that drain you, like endless phone calls, and maximize the parts that energize you, like quiet focus time. It's all about those small, realistic adjustments.
Which leads us to this absolute mic drop quote from the source material. Personality is not a cage, but a map to adjust your life. Just let that sink in for a second. Your traits, your quirks, your sensitivities, they aren't meant to lock you away from the world or limit your potential. They are, quite literally, the topographical map you need to navigate your career, your relationships, and your daily habits. You just have to be willing to actually read the map and adjust your route accordingly.
So, I want to leave you with this provocative question as we wrap up today's explainer. What small environmental adjustment will you make tomorrow? Not next year, not when you eventually change careers, but tomorrow. Are you going to block off 15 minutes of quiet time before a big meeting? Will you put your phone on Do Not Disturb while you do deep work? It's time to stop blaming your innate nature for your struggles and start taking actionable control of your surroundings. You've got the map. Now it's time to use it. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I will see you in the next explainer.